that format again, hoping he can go 4-0 in this format and lock himself into the top 8 of this tournament.
And you can see now Kenta Hiroki on the left, Brad Nelson on the right. If you were confused for a second there, that's okay. Brad Nelson, probably one of the more recognizable players in Magic just anywhere. And Kenta Hiroki is a player that you would be recognizing if you were in the Chicago area, the Michigan area. I'm not sure actually where he's from, but I know I've seen him at PTQs and Grand Prix, basically to be found anywhere from Madison to Chicago to Michigan to Columbus to Indiana. So he must be from this area.
So Kenta starting off the Mono Blue Devotion deck with an island and a Cloudfin Raptor. This deck really feeds off of, as the name implies, the Devotion mechanic with Thassa, God of the Sea, and then Master of Waves. And he has a turn 2 Frostburn Weird, which grants 2 blue mana symbols and also evolves the Cloudfin Raptor. Brad Nelson started off with a Temple Garden and a Temple of Triumph. He scryed and now takes out the Frostburn Weird with a Mizium Mortars and puts another Temple Garden into play tapped.
Now, if you're wondering what Kenta Hiroki's list looks like, it's all 4s in the main in terms of creatures, except for 3 Judges Familiar. His card draw is 2 Jace, 2 Bident. He has 2 Cyclonic Rift and 2 Rapid Hybridization main, and 25 lands. So he's similar in many ways to what Sam Black has been talking about. He has gone to 2 Rapid Hybridization, though.
And we see Kenta has 2 Master of Waves in his hands. That creature pretty important in this matchup, you'd think, because Brad's control deck has Mizium Mortars and Anger of the Gods. The protection from red means Brad's only real answer is Chain to the Rocks or to get something like a Loxodon Smiter to stand in the way.
In hand, you see a Selesnya Charm amongst many of the cards in Brad's hand. You mentioned Advent of the Worm as a possible play here. If he has an Advent, that guy could erupt from under the ground and take out a Tidebender Mage should it come in.
Yeah, ambushing is another possibility. Advent of the Worm and Selesnya Charm could get that Master of the Waves. And here Advent is going to eat the Tide Binder.
And
unless...
bounce it, take that token, pick it up, and it evaporates.
Yeah, using Cyclonic Rift as a pure removal spell against the token. Attacking for 4s, Kenta Hiroki, putting Brad under pressure, but having to use that Cyclonic Rift, costing him his turn, essentially unable to cast Master of the Waves.
Anger of the Gods clears the table, and I believe we see another land in his hand. Yep, there it is. Sacred Foundry joins Brad's side of the board. Kenta Hiroki with Master of Waves, and a Nightveil Spectre in hand.
Yeah, so he's going to want to go with the Nightveil Spectre, most likely. Going to get an attack in with the Mutavault for 2, get your damage in, but he needs to build his Devotion back up. You don't want to cast Master of the Waves on an empty battlefield, right?
And we see a Stormbreath Dragon in Brad's draw. Brad at 11 life.
So at this point, Adrian, we can kind of make out Brad's hand here. What is he going to do? If he's got a Stormbreath Dragon, does he leave that back on defense?
I think what I'll expect to see happening is that Brad is going to attack with the Stormbreath Dragon, lay a come into play tapped land. Oh, he's going to hold it back either way. Either attack or block, right? And then follow up with a Mizium Mortars to clear out the Nightveil Spectre, the Master of Waves tokens, and leave just the Master and the Mutavaults.
I think maybe those 2 Mutavaults now is what really made Brad hold the dragon back. He didn't want to take 6 damage off this next attack because the Mutavaults are dodging his sorcery speed removal.
It's also worth remembering, and there we see a Master with a Devotion of 4. It's also worth remembering Master of Waves makes all elementals get bigger, and Mutavaults are... they're not just rats, they're not just goats, they're also elementals.
Thank you for reminding us of that, Adrian. Yes, they are elementals. They would get pumped +1/+1. And there you see the wave, the elemental wave tokens. They are 1/0s naturally, but 2 1s with the Master.
And Brad's hand, I believe, is a land, a Mizium Mortars, and a Selesnya Charm.
So now the master is a bit of a problem
Yeah,
for
I mean,
Brad.
if
Pro
he
red.
casts the mortars, he's going to clear away everything except for the master. But because of the mutavaults hanging out and the master's being pro-red, that means that there's 8 power on the other side of the board that Brad has
Yikes.
to contend with. And look at that, there's that other master hanging out and a
Yeah.
Jace.
Go with the Jace or the master here.
He's got a Nightfell Spectre as well. There's plenty of options. I mean, Kenta is not actually under any real dangerous threat.
No.
The dragon can become monstrous next turn. That's real.
The trigger, yeah, it will deal maybe 2-3 damage here.
And then you'll have a 7/7 dragon. But I mean,
Still has to be on defense.
Brad is at 9 now after that Master of Waves attack. We see he's going to go for the play flyer in the air.
So it looks like Kenta is trying to set up for the master next turn to get a bunch more elemental tokens, 3 more off of the Nightveil Spectre's hybrid mana symbols. They're both black and blue, so we've seen that card fuel the mono black devotion deck and the mono blue devotion deck.
I think we're going to see the possibility of a Selesnya Charm ambushing this Master of Waves.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier with Advent of the Worm, and Selesnya Charm also can flash in a 2/2 Knight token. Maybe we'll see that Reed Duke Knight token ambush Master of Waves.
Thank you from Twitter, at Rambling Inanely. Rambling Inanely says, Kenta is a Michigan player who plays at Warriors 3 MI. That might be Warriors 3 Mile, or maybe, but yeah, Kenta, a Michigan player.
Maybe, yeah, Michigan MI is the abbreviation for Michigan. So what Kenta just did right there, he cast a Cloudfin Raptor and then a Master of Waves, and has 6 devotion, and he should be able to pump up.
Now remember, each of those Master of Waves makes the waves all a little bit bigger. In comes the Master. I think we're going to see the Selesnya Charm. Boom! There's a Knight. Reed Duke jumps in the way of the Master.
Not going to see Reed because immediately trades for the Master. Brad blocks with his instant effectively. Plays a Temple of Triumph and scries 1, top,
What's
bottom.
down there? We know he's got an Anger of Gods in hand. We're going to see it. Boom. Everybody dead but the Master once again.
But that's a huge threat here, and in conjunction, as you said, with the Mutavaults, those Mutavaults 3/3 elementals when they become active. Brad Nelson still can't attack with the Storm Breath Dragon.
And Kenta here has a Jace and an Island in hand. Brad empty-handed, though he was able to scry last turn. We're going to see the minus ability perhaps on this Jace.
Architect of Thought.
3 cards are revealed. What will they be?
Judge's Familiar, Cyclonic Rift, and a Tidebender Mage. Both Cyclonic Rift and Tidebender Mage able to deal with that Stormbreath Dragon for 1 turn and possibly give Kenta an opening here to attack with those Mutavaults. And Brad, looking at those cards, decides he wants to, I mean, both of those cards deal with the Stormbreath Dragon, the Tidebender on a more semi-permanent basis, although Brad does have removal spells that could take it out, whereas the Cyclonic Rift would be just a 1-turn hit. So he divides it up, and Kenta takes the 2-card pile.
It's a pretty good 2 cards. And there they come. Lock you down, Mr. Stormbreath. Brad has a card on top to help him out. Yeah. No, he says that's it. Okay, to the sideboarding. Brad looking for answers here against Kenta Hiroki, a Michigan player. And Brad's first card written on his sideboard is 4 Mistcutter Hydra. That seems a very reasonable card to bring in.
You have pro blue, or you have pro red. I have pro blue.
That's right.
Brad says.
Now, Brad also has 2 Last Breath, which are very effective at taking out Master of Waves.
Okay.
And the 4 life, Brad really doesn't care about giving his opponent 4 life. Brad isn't concerned with trying to close out the game incredibly rapidly. He can close it out eventually with his more powerful spells. So I think at least those cards are going to be likely to be seeing play. And he also has in his sideboard a bunch of other cards: Sunhome, Guildmage, Rurikthar the Unbowed, Assemble the Legion, Pithing Needle, and Wear Tear.
Okay, Kenta Hiroki in his sideboard. He has one main deck, Nykthos Shrine of Nyx. Likes it so much, he's got another one in his sideboard. He's got a Singleton Bident of Thassa in his sideboard to go along with two main deck. Two more Jace Architect of Thought rounding out his two main deck ones. And a third copy of Rapid Hybridization in his sideboard, and a third copy of Cyclonic Crypt. So those are his sideboard cards that he can round out what he's already got in his main deck. Pure sideboard cards he has. He has one copy of Dissolve, two Domestications, one Aetherling, one Negate, and four Gainsays. So a lot of counter magic, but the four Gainsays specifically against blue, mirror, or maybe against control decks, so not coming in here. So what do you think he's going to bring in this matchup? Is he just going to round out some of his extra spells or bring in something spicy?
Well, I know that one of the things that he saw from Brad Nelson was a lot of spells. And by spells, I'm contrasting that with creatures. I mean cards that are instants, sorceries, that kinds of thing.
Mizium Mortars.
Yep. I think
Anger.
he's definitely going to bring in the one Negate, and he might choose to bring in Dissolve. That's a question mark. But if he's been paying attention to this weekend, Brad Nelson, a very high-profile player, somebody that players will have had a chance to watch, he might know that Brad Nelson is playing an Assemble the Legion deck. I think the extra Cyclonic Rift in his sideboard is very valuable against those kinds of opponents.
Yeah, we don't know what kind of scouting players do in this event, whether maybe Kenta has been seated next to Brad previously and seen the Assemble the Legion. That is a big part of Brad Nelson's deck. His creature base is 4 Loxodon Smiter, 3 Stormbreath Dragon, but really his finisher has been that Assemble the Legion. He's also got the Advent of the Worms.
Assemble the Legion is a card that has very, very few easy answers. And Cyclonic Rift is one of the cards that can answer it. If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Ricky Hayashi. This is the StarCityGames.com Open Series featuring the Invitational. SCG Live, always happy to bring you as much magic as we can possibly get under the camera. And right now you're seeing former Player of the Year Brad Nelson with an innovative new deck, Naya Control, playing against Kenta Hiroki, a fairly local player down from Michigan here, playing the Mono Blue Devotion deck that really had its breakout at Pro Tour Dublin.
Yes, it did. I mean, it won the whole thing. I believe 3 copies were in the top 8. Team Star City Games, most of them were playing the deck, and Sam Black was in that top 8. Okay, these players shuffling up. The interesting thing about this tournament structure, Adrian, is that the top 8 is Legacy, so Brad fighting for his life now, 4 rounds left of Standard, but even if he makes the top 8, he said he's a Standard specialist, not that confident in Legacy.
And we see land as the explosive openings for these two players. Stomping Ground added by Brad, Island added by Kenta, and we see Frostburn Weird.
Frostburn Weird, a limited all-star in Ravnica block constructed, but here it's there for the blue devotion.
Well, you know, the body is not to be underestimated. It can't be angered. It can't be lightning struck.
Yeah, we saw in game 1, Brad actually used a Mizium Mortars to take out a Frostburn Weird, and now he chains it to the rocks. Chains it to that Stomping Ground.
And another land.
Sacred Foundry tapped, which is another rock that he could chain things to. I just love that card, Chained to the Rocks. He plays Temple of Abandoned. Brad Nelson does Scries, puts it on the bottom. Kent has been stuck on 2 lands here and draws a play of another Frostburn Weird, but no third land.
We can see the negate in Kenta's hand. Stormbreath Dragon threatening to make an early end to this game.
And this time it's just going to attack. Brad Nelson at 20, comfortable life total. Kenta has been stuck on 2 lands.
In for 1. We're going to see a Nightveil Spectre here.
Yeah.
Thassa is another option.
Could be Nightveil Spectre. But what does that accomplish for him? Don't want a chump block, so he goes for the card selection.
Thassa it is.
Wants to scry. Needs an answer for Stormbreath Dragon, and now
Oh,
Mistcutter Hydra.
Mistcutter
That
for 5. In for 9 damage. No answers in Kenta's deck. The best that he can do to try to stop this is
Cyclonic Rift
Cyclonic
overloaded.
Rift for overload.
A little bit short of mana on that, although Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, can really explode mana forward in this deck, which is really what makes Cyclonic Rift possible in overload mode. There you see the Mistcutter Hydra, can't be countered, protection from blue, currently a 5/5. So now Kenta does add a Nightveil Spectre, which can block the Stormbreath Dragon.
Okay, that's enough, he says. That's enough. A Selesnya Charm is shown. Kenta with a smile there. Yeah, you got me. That's too much for me to handle today.
Is he going to take a look at his sideboard again, Kenta Hiroki, now that he's seen the Mistcutter Hydra? Well, not really anything he can do about it. If he did not bring in the third copy of Cyclonic Rift, maybe he will consider doing that now. It's real slow, but any answer, a slow answer is better than no answer,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the thing is that Kenta's deck, as built, has no particular answers to the card. Cyclonic Rift is the closest he's got, and a card like Domestication, which he has in the sideboard, has very few targets to actually steal from Brad Nelson. I mean, he could potentially steal a Selesnya Charm, which that's if Brad puts a 2/2 into play and that 2/2 lives. You know, not a very excellent choice there. So I don't know that if he's misidentified Brad's archetype, that would be the only way he would even have a card to bring in to steal something to block. It's very narrow, and it isn't even good then. So really, we're talking about Cyclonic Rift.
That's a good point, Adrian. Brad Nelson's deck, not that well known. It has made a few waves on Magic Online, played by Andre Yanyuk, but it hasn't really hit a major tournament. So Brad picking it up off of Magic Online, playing it here. If Kenta doesn't know what it's all about, that it's more of a control deck, and misidentifies, maybe thinks it's more of a creature-based Naya deck, maybe he did bring in Domestications.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about a mid-range control deck like Brad is playing here, one of the things that it's capable of doing is dominating table states. The whole point of the deck is just to get more stuff that matters in play, and to clear out the stuff that matters from your opponent. Most of Brad's list is removal. There is just a ton of removal, and the few cards that are not removal in this list are heavy hitters. Advent of the Worm, which is pseudo removal, Loxodon Smiter, just a quick, cheap, heavy hitter, Stormbreath Dragon, and cards like Assemble the Legion.
Yeah, the Loxodon Smiter is a nice roadblock. It's also a nice creature if you get paired up against something like Esper Control, can't be countered, force them to Supreme Verdict away your one creature, maybe. Okay, so we are here. Game number 3, the deciding game. Round number 13 out of 16 of the StarCityGames.com Open Series featuring the Invitational. This is the Invitational in Indianapolis, Indiana. That's a lot of I's.
Don't try to say it too many times fast.
There is no I in Invitational? No, there is. Maybe there's no me. There is no me.
But here you are.
Here I am. I'm here as part of a team with Adrian Sullivan alongside myself, Ricky Hayashi. Joey Pasco also has been with us. 3-man team here for the Invitational, bringing you all of the action. Now, the first of 4 standard rounds to decide the top 8, which will be played tomorrow morning.
And Brad Nelson here is going to be on the draw. Kenta Hiroki on the play.
Let's do it.
Now,
quick
mulligan from Kenta. Like, that was almost instantaneous.
We didn't even get to see it. Did you see any part of that hand?
No.
So probably just a no lander or something like that. All lander.
All Mutavolter.
All Mutavolter. Yeah, can't keep an all Mutavolter. Brad Nelson happy with his hand. We see a couple of lands and a couple of red sweepers. That's what he needs. Got to watch out for the pro-red Master of Waves, though.
There are so few answers to that card. He does have 4 chained to the rocks. He can sneakily kill it. We saw this happen earlier with a Advent of the Worm or a Selesnya Charm, where he took a Selesnya Charm and traded with one.
And you believe he would certainly bring in the
Last
last breaths.
breaths. There's a lot of targets, actually.
What kind of hand is Kenta looking for here? Is he looking for Master of Waves?
I think that what he's looking for is the classic curve out, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4. A flyer on turn 1, a blue spell on turn 2, a Night Veil Spectre or a Thassa on turn 3, and then a Master or a Jace on turn 4, or a Bident on turn 4. That's what he wants, is just a pure curve out.
And you said a flyer on turn 1, Judge's Familiar, probably not a bad choice here over Cloudfin Raptor. Cloudfin can't grow bigger than Brad's Sweepers unless you get real lucky, whereas Judge's Familiar can actually slow down the Sweepers. So
I think we see a Dissolve there in Kenta's hand, so he did board in Negate and Dissolve.
But he's got a 2-land, looks like an Island Mutavault hand, which is very awkward with the Frostburn Weird, and I believe there's a Night Veil Spectre. Yeah, he ships that one back too.
One of the things that Kenta is doing here is he's only running 20 islands. And I say only because when you include a color card like Night Veil Spectre, one of the things that I'd definitely learned in my testing in like mono red with Ball Lightnings, or in mono green with Predator Ooze, and in the current metagames with cards like Boros Reckoner, to consistently get the color, you want 21 sources of primary mana that make that. And this is a little shy, so you can still do it.
A little shy.
A lot of players, for example, that's one of the reasons Omen Speaker was being played in some lists, was to help that out.
And his deck has gone to all double blue 2-drops, right?
Yeah, he is repeating the Dublin lists with the 2-drops being all of those, except for, he did not keep the Omen Speaker, widely considered the weakest card in that deck.
Only Frostburn Weirds and Tidebinder Mages. So that Mutavault, anytime he draws a Mutavault, there you see another one, but this time he has 2 islands to go along with it. A Thassa God of the Sea and Night Veil Spectre? Brad starts out with the temple.
Second island and a third island in hand. I think I see a rapid hybridization in there.
It's flipping too fast for my eyes. Brad Nelson with another temple, this time Temple of Abandon, red-green, Scries leaves it on top.
Okay, island. Thassa.
Okay, not enough devotion now. Needs 5 blue mana sources total, including the one on Thassa, but Scry 1 in your upkeep on a mulligan to 5.
To the bottom, and Brad, his deck does not put on pressure, so he's just having to sit there and watch Thassa do some work. Here we go, Frostburn Weird. We're going to see the Mutavault join. And Island rapid hybridization in Kenta Hiroki's hand.
Now built up to 3 devotion with the Frostburn Weird. Blue-red hybrid. Blue-red hybrid. Does Brad want to just 1-for-1 trade with a Frostburn Weird? Off of the mulligan, right? Kenta Hiroki mulligan to 5. You have to figure he doesn't have very many more threats, so maybe he just trades something like Amizium Mortars here.
This is one of those reasons why you should be more than willing to consider throwing away a marginal hand to go to 5 cards. A lot of people are very willing to go to 6, but really struggle with the idea of going to 5. There are 5-card hands that are simply better than a 6-card hand. So you can see this one. Kenta, he's going to have his Frostburn Weird chained to the rocks. I think he might consider
killing his own guy, yeah.
Maybe. And he does in response to the targeting. Kenta here is, I think he's decided he wants to try to beat down. He does not have very many options. He only has a little bit going on, but he could have 5 power as a part of all of this. Now, if this was the old school Pongify, we'd be seeing an ape. But rapid hybridization, I can't remember all the creature
frog
type.
lizard.
Wasn't it a frog, lizard, snake?
No, it's a frog lizard. And there you go, you see it right there. 3/3 frog lizard. Kenta remembers to scry, so 5 power, as you said, Mutavault and the 3/3 frog lizard.
Another rapid hybridization.
Hmm.
In for 5, we have a Selesnya Charm in hand. Will Reed Duke the Knight show up and save anything?
Looks like. But now Kenta drawing the second hybridization.
He could have hybridization his own Mutavault, but he chooses to trade instead, which is just fine. Still got 3 power on the table. That's going to be very easily handled by a control deck like Brad's. Brad drops to 17, and Kenta lays a island. Rapid hybridization hanging out.
So, interesting thing there. Kenta, after the Selesnya Charm resolved, could have activated Thassa, God of the Sea, to make his Mutavault unblockable.
Yeah.
And saved himself and dealt 2 more damage, but decided to trade instead.
And Brad takes 2. Is this going to be a Stormbreath Dragon? It is a Stormbreath Dragon, in for 4. And Kenta says, how about you have a Frog Lizard?
1 for you, 1 for me, 1 for everybody. Everyone gets a frog lizard.
And Kenta here, scry. He needs something like a Jace. A Master is not going to be that effective unless it's followed up by a Bident. And news from the floor.
Okay.
Brian Braun to win now is another match win. That puts him at, wow, at this point, 12-1.
Yeah, that's right. Brian Braun doing now in a fantastic position to make the top 8 of this tournament. These gentlemen, Kenta and Brad, really need to win out in the standard rounds to have a good shot. So,
Brad immediately blocks. I mean, it could be that Kenta is not thinking about the special ability of Thassa.
I was going to say that. It has so many abilities. Usually, you remember to scry every turn. You think about the devotion if you have enough creatures to make that happen. But very rarely does the activated ability of making target creature you control can't be blocked, does that happen? Maybe Kenta just hasn't used that ability at all in the tournament, or because we had 4 rounds of Legacy, he's forgotten about it here.
We see a Master for a mere 2 waves. And we have a Selesnya Charm amongst the cards that Brad has access to.
Yeah, meanwhile, Brad Nelson on his last turn did play Xenagos the Reveler and activated the 0 ability to make a 2/2 hasted green-red Satyr token, which you see on the battlefield there. And now he thinks over his options. I mean, he can't just ignore that Master of Waves. A, it's blanking his token. It's both red and green. And B, it's kind of a threat.
Brad here spending 3 mana. Anger, loses his token, kills Kenta's tokens, replaces the token with the Reveler.
Okay, so Kenta Hiroki, do you attack Xenagos here with Master of Waves to knock it down?
I certainly would. I don't want that Xenagos to stick around for very long.
But needs to find 1 more point of damage somehow to kill it.
Well, the longest journey begins with a single step.
That single step is an attack step. Well, Kenta picked up his Master and then kind of backs up and decides to evaluate the board state a little more closely. He decides to attack Xenagos, as you said. Takes it down to 1 loyalty, can still make another Satyr token. That's a 0 ability.
You know, I think looking at how this game has played out, if he had remembered to activate Thassa for the unblockability, I think he might actually have been able to put Brad under enough pressure where this game might have gone another way.
Yeah, at one point he did not save his Mutavault from being ambushed by a 2/2 Knight token. He also did not save his Frog Lizard from trading with Brad's Frog Lizard. If he had that 3/3, he could have taken out Xenagos with 1 hit, activating Thassa.
Well, the 3/3 would have died to that Anger of the Gods.
Okay, yeah, good point. Thank you.
And he does have another Anger in hand, but the Anger would have had to, like, their whole game would be very different, to be fair. The whole game would be very different. I think we've gone far enough, it's too hard to say where it would be. Two satyrs right now facing off against Master of Waves and a Thassa who has not yet been made flesh.
What would have happened is Brad would have taken a little bit more damage, might have attacked back and dealt Kenta some damage, but either way, the Master of Waves would have forced the anger of the gods. So most likely, both these players would have been at a lower life total on a very similar board position, perhaps. Yeah, thank you for reminding me about that anger of the gods. And Mistcutter Hydra for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can't be countered. Protection from blue. No real way to interact with it here, and Brad just completely turns the tables with this Mistcutter Hydra. What a powerful sideboard card.
And I don't think that Kenta has anything he can do now. He needs Cyclonic Rift at
7 mana.
7 mana, that's a lot of mana. Tidebender holds on a Satyr, but what are you going to do about that Mistcutter?
Cannot target the Mistcutter Hydra.
Do you have a Mutavault? Is that a Mutavault in his hand?
Oh, so that's... You can jump block? Yeah.
There's a Mutavault for 1 block.
But that doesn't help you. I mean, it's a land. It gets you closer to overloading Cyclonic Rift, but not if it jumps. And not if Brad has the Selesnya shot for trample.
Trample, and there she is. Kenta Hiroki falls. Brad Nelson rises. It's 10-3 for Brad Nelson, 9-4 for Kenta Hiroki. These two players on this, I think a matchup that perhaps favors Brad. Brad has a ton of removal. He has cards that can actually remove the Master of Waves.